Okay, so at this point in time, hopefully homework is collected. We all have our notes out. You're going to want your calculator, so if you didn't get that out as part of the POD, make sure you have that. Okay, we are going to be looking at, reviewing, going back and talking about what we do if we want to write equations of lines from 2 points. So we've already done this previously in the trimester. We have already tested over it, but it's gonna come back up later in our unit with data analysis. So it's really important that we're solid and we know how to do this. Okay, we said there were a couple formulas that we needed to be familiar with. So I'm gonna kind of remind you of those formulas again. We need to know our slope formula. Okay, which says y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And we need to know our point slope formula, which says y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. Those are both on the green reference sheet if you have forgotten that. So if at any point you need to grab the green reference sheet to help you, feel free to do that. Okay, so if we want to write the equation of a line from 2 points, so maybe we're asked to write the equation of a line that passes through the point 6, 10 and 8, 16. Okay, the first thing that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to calculate the slope. Okay, so remember, every ordered pair is an x, y. So this is our first set, and our second set. Okay, so our slope formula, our m equals, right, m equals slope, is sitting up here. So to find the slope, we're gonna say 16, y2 is 16, minus y1, which is 10, over x2, which is 8, minus x1, which is 6. Okay, so we'll subtract those. 16 minus 10 is 6. 8 minus 6 is 2. All right, we always want to get this reduced over here. So 6 divided by 2 is 3, so we know that we have a slope of 3. This is the first piece of information that we need to write the equation of a line. The second piece of information that we need is one of these points. You can pick either point that you want, right? We sort of always picked the one that was maybe smaller or had less negatives. Okay, and at this point, we no longer need the second point. We just needed it to help us find the slope, which we already have. So now we're just gonna use these two things. Okay, and now we need to use our point slope formula. Right, so now we need to use our y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1, where x sub 1 is now 6, y sub 1 is now 10, and m is 3. So I now have y minus 10 equals m, which is 3, times x minus 6, right? I'm replacing each of their values into the formula. The y stays and the x stays. Okay, but we also said that we couldn't leave our answer in this format, right? We wanted our final answer to be in slope-intercept form, which was y equals mx plus b form. So we said to get this into slope-intercept form, we would distribute. So 3 times x is 3x. 3 times negative 6, right? So lots of you were using a calculator to help you, and I said in your calculator, type 3 times negative 6, which gave us a negative 18, right? And then we left this in our calculator. We didn't hit clear. Okay, we had y minus 10 equals 3x minus 18. because then we would undo subtracting 10 by adding 10. And we could just leave that negative 18 in our calculator and just hit the plus 10, the adding 10. Okay, those cancel out. Equals 3x, and that gives us a negative 8. And so the equation of the line that passes through our original 2 points is y equals 3x minus 8. Okay. Now, we've talked about the fact that the numbers don't always have to be pretty. Sometimes they can be a bit more messy. Sometimes we can be working with strange fractions. So if you get a slope here of 6/5, right, you might need to use your calculator to help you go through and make sure you're getting the right answer. Okay. We also said that we could write equations of lines if we were given a table to start with. And our table might be labeled with x comma y. But our table might also be labeled with x and f of x. Right, so this f of x here was the same thing as y. So let's do some input values of -6, -4, -2, and 10, why not? Okay, and let's have our output values be 4, 5, 6, and 12. Okay, so if we want to write the equation from this table, we're going to do the exact same process, but we just need to identify the 2 points to start with. So from this entire table, we need to pick 2 of these points. So you can decide you want to avoid negatives and go with one of them down here, though you might decide that's large. I think I'm going to kind of go right here in the middle because I want to show you a couple things and I want to avoid the larger numbers of 10 and 12. Okay, so this gives me ordered pairs of -4, 5 and -2, 6. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is write the slope. We need to calculate it, right? So we're going to do y2 minus y1, so 6 minus 5, over x2 minus x1. Now keep in mind, x2 is -2. This subtraction sign is part of our formula, which says always use subtraction, and then a -4. We've really struggled with this, so we need to make sure we're okay there. Use a calculator to help you. Something. 6 minus 5 gives us 1. -2 minus -4 is the same thing as adding 4, which gives us 1/2. So this tells us that our slope is 1/2. Okay, so now I'm going to pick one of my points that I already had. So I think I'll pick the point -2, 6 to go with it. Okay, so here's the information I'm going to plug in to my point slope form. Right, this is the formula. So I'm going to say y minus my y coordinate is 6 equals m, which is 1/2, times x minus my x coordinate, which is -2. So again, subtraction here is part of the formula. -2 is part of the number. Before we start multiplying, we said if we have 2 negatives, we would turn those into a positive. So now we'll distribute. So 1/2 x plus, use your calculator if you need to, right? We'll take 1 ABC 2 times 2, which gives us 1. We'll undo subtracting 6 by adding 6. Now, we are really, really close to being done, but we're not quite there yet because we don't want this to be a y because our table was labeled with an f of x. So we said we would want to swap those two out. So this is going to be f of x equals 1/2 x plus 7. Okay, so here's what you're going to do for the rest of class. When the video is over, the sub's going to be passing out a worksheet to you. That's all about writing equations of lines. Okay, you can use the notes that you just took. You could also go back and look at any notes that you have from previously in the trimester when we went over this the first time. You're going to go through and work on those. I think there are 12 problems on that worksheet. Okay, the answer key is on the front board. So if you are struggling, you're not sure if you're getting the right answer, some of them have weird numbers. Do not decimal approximate. Fractions are our friends. Slope needs to be in fraction form. Okay. At the end of class, the sub is going to collect that worksheet from you. That's what I'm going to use to give you your participation points for the day, just like I normally would give you. I'm just not there to watch what you're doing. If you don't finish, that's fine, but if you did nothing, right, that's a different story. If there happens to be a 2-hour delay tomorrow, obviously that means you'll have less time to work, so I'll take that into account too. We can always catch up with any information or anything we need to clarify on Monday. Have a great rest of the day. Make sure you're working. You guys know the rules. You can work with someone as long as you're working. Okay, I'm really worried that some of you will just sit and talk and you won't get your points for the day. You can listen to music as long as your device is face down. The sub knows I've left instructions that if you guys aren't handling it, you're gonna have to go to your seats and work in silence. I will see you all on Monday.